to say something. I need to record my experience at this moment. I'm feeling really frustrated because I'm dealing with an ongoing issue that is not being resolved by the building management. I live in a seniors building, and other seniors have issues with me having dogs. They have issues with me because I have dogs. And one particular person, Steve Zakowski, he's a tenant on the 6th floor, and I'm on the 1st floor. He's at the west side of the building, and I'm at the east side of the building. We're at opposite ends of the building, and it's a 7 story building, and yet he's constantly finding ways to insert himself, to insinuate himself into a situation. He's called 311 and repeatedly made false complaints. I've filed complaints about this harassment because it's not just him. There are a couple of other tenants. There's a woman in here who has a walker who comes down and sits right in the hallway, practically outside of my door because the rec room is the next room beside me. And she will sit there, and then when I come out with the dogs, she will make an issue of it. And she's informed me that she doesn't like men. So this is just the kind of atmosphere that I'm living in. And it's really frustrating because I don't have any reason to have conflict with people. I really like to laugh. I would really like to engage with people in intelligent conversation, in relevant conversation, and certainly not this kind of immature conflict that just escalates. And management has allowed it to escalate, and it's really wearing at me. It's making it hard for me to stay grounded. It's really messing with my emotions. I'm conflicted around having dogs. They're great dogs, and yet when I had a Shih Tzu and it stayed in my apartment for the most part and came out to walk basically around the property, and that was enough. Nobody seemed to have an issue. And that's the other thing. There are 5 dogs in this building. The building I was at before had 5 probably on every floor. And so, and my dogs, one of my dogs is heavier than the other 3 dogs that live in this building because they're tiny little things. And even then, there's one tenant who has a dog, and his partner goes out of her way to engage in conflict with me. And this is just, it's overwhelming because certainly me and my dogs are the one common denominator in all of these issues. And yet it's unnecessary because these people have no reason. As a matter of fact, the recent issue I have with this Steve Zakowski in 616 is he came out of the side door, and my dogs are on a tether, and they came up to him and greeted him and barked at him, but their tails were wagging, and they're happy dogs, as they're conditioned to be. And he had actually a very friendly encounter. They never jumped up at him at any point. They did bark, but his last statement before he walked away was "good puppies," and he didn't kick them and didn't act like he was afraid, which was my concern, was that he was actually going to. And that's why they didn't act out, because he didn't act out. And that's also the common denominator in these circumstances, is the people that the dogs are bothered by are bothersome. This Steve Zakowski has stood there and stared the dogs down. And even in this last encounter, he stood there passively, really probably waiting for the dogs to hurt him so that he could compound his complaint. And he did call 311 after this incident and called to complain that they attacked him. And so this is not being handled by management, even though I've complained to management about it. And I don't know how this is supposed to resolve itself. I feel like I've done everything I can. Every time 311 calls me, I've responded, explained the situation, even told them that this management here, Michael Bezoff, has filed complaints without actually investigating. He's actually added to the conflict and escalated the issue by entertaining false allegations and false complaints, and also ignoring liability, because one of the complaints was that a person fell down the stairs because of my dog and injured themselves, and that is a serious allegation. They did not investigate it, and so their liability is really right there, because they are ignorant to their responsibility, and they are absent in accountability, and they are looking to transfer that and retaliate. They have retaliated against me by calling me to meetings without actually giving an explanation about why. They have not taken my complaints. They've turned those complaints around and told me I have to keep my dogs on a short leash when I'm around anybody. And I've done all of those things. I've got pinch collars for the dogs. I've gotten, even recently with the tether, if they go, I moved the tether because this Steve Zakowski interaction to me was an example of how it could possibly go wrong, where somebody who doesn't smell right, and that's really why dogs react, is something smells funny to them, that the dogs might actually menace them and make them fall down. So I moved the tether away, and sure enough, the person who has a dog, his partner, she comes along and she makes an issue, and the dogs couldn't go near her. They were a good 10 feet away from her, but that's not good enough. That's the thing, is any way a person can make a conflict, they're willing to do it. And my position is I'm staying in my little corner. I'm doing what I can to avoid interaction, so I avoid conflict, so that I can just live in peace and just enjoy my companions and interact with people who want to, and avoid people who don't or are afraid to. And I've done everything I can. Even the person who claims to have fallen down the stairs, I brought my puppy Bertha out when she was about 8 weeks old and was just able to fit in his hands, and asked him to hold her, and tried to explain that this puppy is just like Hershey, that she's going to grow up big like Hershey, but she's a puppy. And that wasn't good enough. He still freaks out and does a chicken dance. And that's him. So why am I responsible for his emotions? Why am I accountable for his fear? And where is management to de-escalate, to mitigate, to help in resolving this? Because if dogs aren't allowed, then make it a law that dogs aren't allowed. But that's racism and discrimination at its core. That's the victim energy that people will impose because they're either bored, or they actually think that it's their right to tell other people what to do and impose their will and interfere with other people's lives for entertainment. And that's what really is bothering me, is that my experience is that this is the way that perpetrators, bullies, impose themselves. And whether Steve Zakowski has a mental issue or whether he's just plain an asshole is not for me to actually have to engage with. And the idea is that I'm allowed to have a dog. So he's not allowed to go run into conflict. He's not allowed to run into traffic and claim that he's a victim. He's not allowed to come out and look for conflict with my dogs and then claim to be a victim. And who's telling him that and making him stop looking for trouble? Anyway, I don't know if I vented enough because I feel like there's an internal knot that every time I have to engage with this person who is a stranger to me, and good neighbors are friendly strangers, not this kind of behavior. And like people who don't like dogs find things that they like and focus on that. Don't come focusing on their dislike and making me part of their life problems. I can't even solve that for them. And there's no good answer from their perspective because they would just like to pick on me, just like they would pick on anybody else that would be less, that they can find that would be less than them. And that's the underlying issue that everybody should see there. That just like racism is stupidity because you're judging somebody for their ancestral environment, the place that their ancestors evolved from, and not where they are now. And that's the thing too. This is where we are. We're in Canada. So this is a place where people are supposed to accept others where they're at. Don't pick on people because you don't understand. And I'm feeling that as a senior. I'm feeling that macro aggression. I'm experiencing it from management. I'm experiencing it from tenants. I'm experiencing it from people who come here to say that they're here to help. That because I'm now in a category called seniors, that there's an attitude of disrespect, a treatment that I am less than the ambitious young people out there. I was an entrepreneur. I ran my own business. I worked for other people and helped other people be successful. And now I feel like I have to justify myself. I never did feel that before. And it's really discrimination. And it doesn't have to be, I clearly got the message that I'm the person who is blamed for everything because of that box that people want to put me into. And yet, claim that they don't belong in a box and should not be put into a box. And that's discrimination, though. And so if you do it to one, whether you do it for a good reason or not, it's irrelevant. You're justifying a reason. And if everybody did the wrong thing, it still would be the wrong thing. It would not make it right. And so I'm just really having a hard time being old. I've lost my status of being the blame for everything. I think I liked it better that way. At least I was ignoring it because I knew it wasn't true. So.